Parker met his wife 5 years ago during a barbecue at a mutual friend's house. Starting a conversation, he immediately felt they had a strong chemistry. He thought he had a good chance with such a beautiful and witty woman, while she considered that he would appeal to her due to his rough personality. After a few weeks of dating, they couldn't get enough of each other and lived in a whirlwind of passion. Time passed, and they tied the knot after 18 months of dating. They moved into a large apartment while saving money to buy a house. However, after several years of marriage, things began to change. Parker noticed that his wife was starting arguments over trivial matters and would get angry when he mentioned his late nights and professional outings, which were becoming more frequent. She insisted these were part of her job and that they needed the income since she had received a promotion. Parker felt he had no right to question her, even though he was often away for work too. Their arguments were cyclical and never reached a resolution. He never suspected why she was working so much and attributed it to her being tired from work. He never looked at her phone or messages. Catherine began returning home after work only to leave again for professional commitments. What started as one night a week turned into more than 3 nights a week. Parker wasn't overly jealous but couldn't ignore it. He knew there were men at her office she should be warding off. However, she seemed only interested in work and collaborated more with men than women. His first suspicion of infidelity arose a month ago when he stopped by the store before heading home. He asked her to help with groceries while retrieving some bags from the backseat of the car when he noticed something shiny, a pink bra under the passenger seat. In retrospect, he realized why she had been distant. Whenever she was in the mood for intimacy, she would always take off her bra first. He didn't know what this meant, but seeing it filled him with dread. When he returned to the kitchen with the bags, Catherine asked if he was okay, noting that he looked like he'd seen a ghost. He replied that everything was fine and tried not to show anger or betrayal. That night and the following night, he wanted to find out if she was seeing someone else. One Friday after work, he prepared a beautiful dinner, set the table with nice dishes, cutlery, candles, bought an expensive bottle of wine, and a bouquet of roses. She walked in excitedly after work as usual. However, Catherine told him with a sad smile that she couldn't stay because she had plans with colleagues that evening. She offered to eat at least a little with him before leaving to avoid upsetting him. Parker felt furious inside but managed to conceal it. After she went to shower, he grabbed her phone and placed it in the backseat so he could track her location through it. He threw away the dinner and flowers in frustration. When Catherine returned from her shower looking beautiful as always, he invited her to eat, but she insisted on going out with her friends instead. She seemed puzzled by his demeanor and asked if he was angry. He replied that he was just disappointed that she never wanted to do anything together. He started monitoring her phone and saw that she stopped at the bar where she often hung out with coworkers. So, he decided to follow her car. Sure enough, it was parked at the bar. About an hour later, he saw her exit the bar with a man who appeared to be one of the executives from her office. They embraced closely and kissed, his stomach twisted in knots as his body went numb at this sight. They got into another car and drove off toward a hotel together. Parker watched them enter hand in hand and thought to himself that he'd seen enough. He felt like an idiot for not realizing sooner. He began pounding his fist on the steering wheel in frustration. Something inside him broke. Half conscious from rage, he needed a drink and started driving while crying from anger until he found a bar where he began drinking heavily. When the bartender brought him his drink, she asked if everything was alright because he looked like someone whose ship had sunk. He half smiled and said yes, you could say that. Then another man sat next to him, starting up a conversation that made Parker feel slightly more comfortable despite his mood being low. They discussed infidelity. Parker expressed his desire to leave Catherine behind and forget about her. The man reassured him that he wasn't alone. He had gone through something similar years ago, and sometimes these things happen for a reason. He told Parker that life might seem bleak now but would improve over time, it depended on him. Parker was hurting but tried to think more logically about everything. Thoughts about what steps to take next didn't cross his mind yet. He knew he no longer wanted to be beside Catherine anymore. He shared all this with his friend who understood his situation well and suggested an idea. If Parker felt like leaving someday, he had an old RV that needed some repairs but could be useful for him as temporary housing away from all this chaos. Parker thought about it seriously. Seizing this opportunity could help him clear his mind. So he decided to accept the offer and arranged to meet up days later. He began feeling hopeful about escaping what felt like a nightmare causing him so much pain. One thing was certain, there was no way he'd ever want to be with Catherine again. Infidelity was something intolerable for him. That night when Catherine returned home, she asked where he'd been. Turning toward her, Parker asked where she'd been too. She casually replied she went out for drinks. Then came the moment when Parker directly asked if she was having an affair. Catherine looked surprised but maintained her composure, saying no, wondering why he'd ask such a thing. He told her he'd heard rumors about someone from work. Catherine dismissed it angrily, saying it made him look ridiculous. Was he drunk? He admitted yes, he'd gone out for drinks with friends. She stared at him intensely as if wanting more details, but then retreated back into their bedroom while Parker decided to sleep on the couch since now it felt confirmed, she'd been lying for months. Imagining some guy in bed with her disgusted him deeply as thoughts of the RV offered by his friend lingered positively in his mind. The next morning passed without much talk between them. They spent the weekend as if nothing had happened. Days later, Parker met up with his friend about the RV. It turned out well since he traveled there during vacations before enjoying himself thoroughly, and made an offer buying it at an excellent price. He attempted discussing their relationship issues with Catherine over several weeks but found only deceit from her side instead of clarity when confronting her about cheating. She'd insist there wasn't any proof against her claims, which left him frustrated. Eventually concluding that leaving their marriage was indeed what he wanted. Yet instead of confronting Catherine directly about how he felt, he began moving his belongings into the RV while she worked during the day. During this time frame, though, there seemed noticeable changes in Catherine's behavior towards him. She became kinder. But it felt too late as she continued those late-night outings. After work, without any real explanation when questioned by Parker about where she'd go dressed up nicely each time. Then one day Catherine told him she'd have a work trip next week. Curious about who else would join them on this trip led him down another path of suspicion regarding who might be involved romantically on these trips away from home. Even though deep down inside Parker knew it wouldn't matter who else existed. It only mattered now how things ended between them, ultimately leading toward divorce proceedings initiated by Catherine herself. After hiring an attorney claiming irreconcilable differences which caught Parker off guard initially yet quickly accepted without much resistance, realizing all along this outcome suited both parties involved better than continuing down paths filled only with mistrust, lingering resentment built over time spent together, previously shared memories now tainted forevermore due lack thereof, honesty exchanged between partners once held dear, close together throughout years gone by. In conclusion, life moved forward rapidly after finalizing divorce papers months later, freeing Parker completely, allowing newfound opportunities arise ahead, including meeting someone new during jogs outside, enjoying fresh air together, sharing laughs, discovering mutual interests, leading toward blossoming romance. Once again, despite past heartaches, reminding us sometimes letting go opens doors leading brighter futures awaiting ahead, filled hope, promised new beginnings await those willing take risks, embrace change wholeheartedly, moving forward, living life fullest possible way, finding happiness once again, learning lessons, a long journey taken through ups downs experienced throughout relationships formed past present future alike.